Frank Lampard has returned to Chelsea in a caretaker role. I mean, Nick, what are Chelsea doing here? What is the plan? He's in until the end of the season, probably just to give themselves a bit of time, right? Because there's Julian Nagelsmann, Luis Enrique, even Pochettino. There's talks happening with those top managers and trying to figure out who wants in at Chelsea and what the kind of project is. But the Chelsea owners, the American-led ownership with Todd Boehly front and center, what are they doing here? Bringing back Frank Lampard. He had a previous spell in charge of Chelsea. Didn't end well. Did okay, you'd have to say, over the whole time he was at Stamford Bridge. But this just feels strange. I know they're in a bad place. They've got great players, but it didn't work out under Graham Potter. And it feels like they're scrambling right now. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm John Terry right now, I'm wondering what I got to do to get a call. Are they going to go with like manager of the week basis here? With we're bringing in Ashley Cole this week. Like this is, I don't get it.
He is going to be the assistant apparently for.
Oh well, you know what? They are then bringing in Ashley Cole this week, so this is exciting.
Hey, bring in Drogba to teach some finishing. That's what this team needs.
They might need Drogba. Period. So listen, I don't know. And I wonder if they've really genuinely thought through every scenario for how this can go. Because, first of all, if you're going to appoint a caretaker manager, do you know how many managers out there would love to take a job with a guaranteed Champions League quarterfinal on their resume? I mean, this is a really good opportunity. And I don't blame Frank Lampard for taking this job one bit. But I'm just wondering, what do you do as you are looking for a permanent manager? You must have not no faith, but they must consider winning the Champions League a long shot. They must really look at their team and think, I don't think we're beating Real Madrid and then City or Bayern. Because if they do win while they're in the midst of, let's be honest, if they're appointing someone in the summer, let's say it's Luis Enrique, let's say it's Nagelsmann, it's going to be appointed before the end of the year probably, and it may be appointed while this other manager, a club legend, is potentially leading them to a final. And it's just so strange that I can barely wrap my head around it. And that's before even getting to the fact that I don't think he really knows what he's doing. I think there's limited damage he can do here. But we've seen it at Everton. How much better do they look now, even in the small sample size? Mm-hmm. When he left Chelsea, Thomas Tuchel won the Champions League. And Derby County was a I messed that up. Was a playoff team before he got there. And a borderline playoff team after he left. So I just don't think you know what you're getting with him.
You know what, though? Good point. If you're Frank Lampard, you definitely take this opportunity because there is no downside to this. He's already kind of been at Chelsea, Everton. Everyone's made their mind up about him. So if it goes better than expected, then, they've got 9 Premier League games left. I looked at the schedule, some winnable ones there. Maybe he wins half of the games, gets them in the top 10. And then, you know what, Nick? I kind of disagree on the point. I think that they believe that someone like Lampard in a one-off game is kind of experience, and the way Chelsea have played in the Champions League. I honestly think they can win the Champions League with Frank Lampard in charge, and it's more of a motivational thing, and that the squad is actually set up better for European action than it is in the Premier League. So I think, it's kind of a situation where almost as well, it strikes me that maybe Chelsea, I know it's changed a lot at the top, but I almost feel a little bit guilty with the way it ended with Frank Lampard, and they went on to win the Champions League with the team that he created, and then Thomas Tuchel tweaked and made a lot better. But it's almost like there's a bit of guilt there. There's a lot of the same players are still there. Pulisic, Mason Mount, Kante, Kovacic, Thiago Silva, Kepa. They're all still there. So maybe it's just having a talk with the senior players there and saying, here's a list of people we're thinking of coming in to the end of the season. And they may have picked Lampard and said, it wasn't too bad under him when we all kind of think about it all said and done. So great job for Lampard to have. I think he can have a go against Real Madrid and just kind of try and have a good kind of system towards the end of the season and see what happens. But for Chelsea, Andy, I'm still questioning. This feels like they're pandering to the fan base a little bit, a kind of a hire of a club legend. No one can really get too angry at Frank Lampard. Season's kind of already gone. It buys them a bit of time, but with the way Potter was fired, the way that they've been spending money all over the place, and now this kind of move doesn't strike me as an ownership and a hierarchy that really is sticking to what they truly believe in, and are just kind of changing their mind almost on a weekly basis on what they think is the future for Chelsea. Is that fair to say?
Yep. Yep. All of it. Completely fair to say. And I think probably 100% correct as well. It only matters to buy yourself time if you are actually going to put together a thorough and well thought out plan, put it into action, and then stick with it. Not Graham Potter was probably a thorough, well thought out plan that they thought was going to be something that they were going to stick with for a long time. He lasted half of a season in that job, and then he's gone, and we're bringing back Frank Lampard, who, to Nick's point, has left 2 jobs, and both of those clubs have immediately, didn't take time, immediately improved simply by removing him as the manager. And so the thought that Frank Lampard, and I've heard this some places, that Frank deserves another Premier League job is a little bit bonkers to me because he has gone into 2 of them, failed pretty badly and quickly as well, didn't last long in either job, was moved on, and as we've all said, both of those clubs got better. Obviously, he's going to take the opportunity because it's probably his last chance to show that he can do it at the Premier League level before he has to, either humble himself a little bit and start dropping down the leagues in terms of where he is going to consider taking a job, or just simply no longer be a manager. I think that's the point of Frank Lampard's managerial career that he is at. Because remember, before he took the Chelsea job, when he had situation with Derby, it felt like he thought he deserved to start at a certain level, that he should just be there based on who he was, what he had done as a player, and didn't really go down and prove himself the way that a lot of good managers have done over the years. And I think that reflected in the way that he set his teams up and the poor performances and just the lack of understanding and context for what that job means. I think when you hit a rough patch, like he spent most of his career at Chelsea as a player, and so all he knew was either we win every game or we fire the manager and we bring somebody in new. That's not really a great environment to grow ideas as a future manager and to have an understanding of how that position works, because at Chelsea it's different than virtually every other club in the world, and it continues to be that way even under new ownership. It just feels like there's a lack of experience and the lack of relationships that Todd Bowley has with people within the footballing world compared to what Roman Abramovich had over a very long period of time, I think is starting to show itself a little bit, just that inexperience factor. So it's a bit of a mess at Chelsea right now, but at the same time, with as much money as they've got and they've spent into that squad and the talent they brought in, with the right appointment in the summer, they can quickly turn it around.
That's very true. And I will say, I'm not defending Frank Lampard here, but that first season of Chelsea, if we cast our minds back to it, 2019-20, very inexperienced team, had the transfer embargo. They finished 4th that season, got to the FA Cup final, and got to the Champions League last 16. So it wasn't terrible, wasn't a terrible season at all. So it's a different time. There's different expectations now. I just think the message it sends out, right, Nick, is just a little bit strange. And my question to you is, if he does somehow lead them to Champions League glory, again, they got to get past Real Madrid and then one of Man City or Bayern in the semi. Does he stay? Because he's already been asked that in his press conference, and he said, I haven't been told that it just purely into the end of the season. We'll kind of just see what happens and go from there. That's another discussion. So if he somehow does exactly what Roberto Di Matteo did and wins Chelsea the Champions League when he was a player for them as an interim and a caretaker boss, then do you see any possibility that Lampard could stay on as Chelsea boss if he does win the European Cup?
Of course, there's a possibility, but that's kind of where I want to leave it. It's just something we wouldn't understand about the club and its vision moving forward and what that is. And in reading about what's gone on at Chelsea, it is deeper than one man. I think Todd Bowley has presented himself as the figurehead here, but there are other people making big decisions and having big says. And I don't think they haven't given us a chance, and we haven't had time to really figure out what their plan is. So of course there's a chance. I just think this is a man who's not going to get there. I think his record against Klopp, Pep Guardiola, and I'm missing a third man. It's something like 3-3-15 as a Premier League manager. To think that he's going to get the better of Ancelotti and then Tuchel, as glorious as a matchup that would be, or Pep over 180 minutes. If it happens, feel free to tell me how dumb I am.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just weird things happen in football, right,
It's
Andy?
true.
So,
Roberto Di Matteo.
yeah, it's just there's again, that's what I'm saying about this appointment. It feels like Chelsea still believe they can go on and win this thing, and don't rule out the motivation of they need to win it to be in the Champions League next season, right? Top four's totally gone; it's out of the question. Lampard's already talking about, yeah, maybe we can, if we have a good finish to the Premier League season, finishing in the European spots and Europa League, but Chelsea's players, there's enough quality there that if they somehow get some semblance of a team unit, like they did against Dortmund, to be fair, in the second leg, and they played really well in that game, it could happen, right? But what do you see long term? Do maybe, even if he doesn't stay on as the main manager, could you see Lampard remaining as part of the backroom staff or some other role in the club? No, you don't think so?
No, that's a mess for the club as a situation to deal with, and and again, to the point I made earlier, I think Lampard thinks he's above doing that. Like, he has proven that at multiple stops. Like, he's not taken a lesser job. I'm sure he's been approached and had opportunities since he left Everton and between when he left Chelsea and before he went to, like, he has just proven that this is what he thinks he is. He thinks he's a manager at the Premier League level, and now he's got, 9 or 10 games in the league, a couple in the Champions League at least, to prove that that's true or not.
Yeah, let's wait and see if it is. But the big news around the Premier League is that Frank Lampard has returned to Chelsea as caretaker manager until the end of this current season. They've got the 2 Champions League quarterfinals against Real Madrid coming up, 9 more Premier League games. He knows a lot of the players. A lot of the players will be pretty happy. They're a lot of his favourites, you would say, from his previous spell at Chelsea, are still around at Stamford Bridge. So a strange decision from Chelsea, but obviously buying themselves the ownership there a little bit more time before they appoint a new long-term manager. And like we said, who knows, if Lampard leads Chelsea to Champions League glory from the bench, then maybe he sticks around.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.